Good afternoon, everyone. Let's make a start. Thank you very much. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Phillips, and I have the privilege of being the Director of Education here at the Jewish Holocaust Centre. I would like to start by acknowledging that this book launch, I Am Sasha, is being held on the traditional lands of the Bunwurrung of the Kulin Nation people, and I wish to recognise them as traditional owners. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to Anita and her family, friends and representatives from Penguin Random House, who are all here, and everyone else here in this auditorium, who are here to celebrate the launch of I Am Sasha, so lovingly written by Anita. We are delighted that Anita selected the Jewish Holocaust Centre to launch her book this afternoon, as she has shown a deep commitment and connection to Holocaust education. Here at the Holocaust Centre, we see ourselves as custodians of memory of the Melbourne Holocaust survivors' stories. And indeed, Anita's grandmother, Larissa, and father, Sasha's stories are ones to remember and share. By painstakingly taking Larissa's unpublished memoir and her father's short story as a base, Anita has gone on her own personal journey in writing I Am Sasha. In doing so, she has ensured this powerful story will be known and remembered beyond the immediate family, to be shared with hopefully a very wide audience, especially if I've got anything to do with it. Certainly it is currently shared and will continue to be shared with the students who participate in our Hide and Seek program, and we're looking forward to them really getting to know the story even further with the book now being published. Anita, this is a great achievement and a gift to us all. It is now my pleasure this afternoon to introduce to you Robert Sessions to launch this book. Robert, better known as Bob, I believe, has been a book publisher in Australia since 1964. He worked with several large publishers and was publishing director of Penguin Books Australia for 23 years. He was awarded an AM for his significant service to the Australian publishing industry, and he currently sits on a number of book industry committees and is currently a board member of the Australian Book Review, the Melbourne Writers' Festival, one of my favourites, and the Australian Film Institute. I'd now like to invite Bob to the podium to launch I Am Sasha. Thank you very much.
And I'll start off by welcoming everyone to the launch of a book which has a special place for me among the books I've published over a long career. When I retired from full-time work as a book publisher, I started a small publishing consultancy. I was introduced to a woman writer whom I came to learn had great determination as well as great talent, and who I discovered was doing her best to carry out the wishes of her mother in writing and getting published her mother's memoir, an extraordinary tale of survival in the 1940s Poland, where the Gestapo were a constant threat, especially to the Jewish community. Her mother gave her memoir to Anita on the understanding that she would write it in English and get it published. She said, apparently, "I want the world to know." Anita spent several years working on the story, and we sent the book out to a number of prospective publishers, generally receiving a somewhat lukewarm response. I knew it was a powerful story, and I racked my brains as to how we might present it in a more appealing way. Then it occurred to me that the most compelling element of the story of her father, Sasha, then a 13-year-old boy, who was to go through so much in his bid to survive. So I suggested to Anita that she might consider rewriting the story from the point of view of the young boy whose life was to be changed so dramatically. When she recovered sufficiently from the shock of having to write the book all over again, she allowed me to find her an editor who had done this sort of thing before for me, the incomparable Suzanne Wilson, and the two of them got to work. Her father contributed some valuable first-hand memories, which would have been invaluable for this new venture, but tragically they were destroyed in her house renovation. So Anita had to use her imagination as to how Sasha might have been feeling at this difficult time, and how the world would have looked through his eyes as the war progressed and he and his mother kept one step ahead of the Germans. The early written chapters from Anita showed it had been the right thing to do, as the story really came alive. The book was turned into a gripping page-turner, and one which I could see had educational potential as well. At that point it became obvious that publishers could see the book's potential, and I placed it with Penguin, many of whom old colleagues are here today, who I knew would do it justice. Well, they have, as you can see, in every way so far. I have every confidence that the book will be very well received and will go on to sell more than enough copies to satisfy the wishes of Anita's mother and her father, Sasha. I've purposely told you any snippets here, as it's up to Anita to decide how much of the story she wants you to know at this stage, although a lot of it is fairly obvious from what's around us. Like any author, I imagine she would actually really like you to buy a copy of the book and read it for yourself. It is a gripping tale. It's one I think you will find fascinating, and I think it's one that's going to be with us for a long time. So now I think it's high time for us to hear directly from Anita.
Thank you, Bob, for that lovely introduction. You have been instrumental in getting I Am Sasha published, and I can't thank you enough for your advice and guidance. Since we met, our professional relationship has extended into a warm friendship. And thanks to Barbara Fee, my friend and former journalist, age journalist, for connecting me to Bob. Lisa Phillips, you have been incredibly supportive and helpful in promoting I Am Sasha, for which I'm very grateful. I enjoyed our in-conversation at Readings Hawthorne on Thursday night. It was fun. I'd like to thank the Penguin team who are here today, my publisher Lisa Riley and commissioning editor Amy Thomas, for reacting the way I had hoped a publishing house would respond, excited upon first reading the manuscript, not being able to put it down, and loving my work. I thank you for your unstinted enthusiasm. Gratitude is extended to you, Amy, for your seamless and meticulous editing. The ingenuous Tony Palmer for creating the enticing cover and book design. Terrific Tina Gumnior, publicity manager, my nickname for Tina, for all your hard work, and Eleanor Sean Holden, rights manager, for endeavouring to secure international rights where possible and for putting up with me hassling her all the time. How wonderful that you are all here to support me today. This means a lot to me. Thank you to Warren Feinberg, Executive Director of the Jewish Holocaust Centre, for suggesting that we have the launch here today, and his staff for organising the event. Dr. Michael Cohen, Tosca Birnbaum, Leora Harrison, and Lena Fishman. Thanks to Jenny Better, School Education Coordinator from the Jewish Museum, for your support. Some of you here today know how I came to write Sasha, but not all of you know the story. In 1994, before my grandmother passed away, she handed me her memoir, written in English, even though her mother tongue was Polish. She said to me, "Annie, you are a writer, or you're starting to be a writer, and I want you to tell the story of how your father and I survived the war, the Holocaust." Pointing to her memoir, she added, "What you need to know is in here," and it was a manila folder with loose leaf pages written in blue point ink. The memoir was placed in my desk for the following 20 years, unread while I raised my wonderful children with my wonderful husband, Danny, and worked on other books and my PhD. I did promise Nana to write the story and try to get it published, but it was an enormous responsibility which now is fulfilled. One day, after my kids grew up, I pulled that memoir out of the drawer and with a hot cup of tea, read it. I was dumbfounded after learning how Dad and Nana survived the Holocaust. I was blown away by this fragmented story that hovers from past to present, backwards and forwards, from one place to another and detail to detail. The memoir provided the bones for I Am Sasha. And I wrote the book in the voice of a boy, an adolescent boy, which was a challenge in itself. But I realised that just telling the story would not be enough, so I had to imagine his feelings and thoughts, and they needed to be integral and threaded into the fabric of this incredible story. For me, the emotional element was critical to the storytelling. So, I Am Sasha is about a mother's powerful love for her child and the lengths she goes to save that child. It is the journey of their survival encompassing courage, choice and chance. It is about a young fatherless child growing up in war-torn Poland who daily and nightly faces life and death in constant fear through the adolescent years. But I Am Sasha is much more than that. The book also raises the questions, who am I, in terms of race, religion and gender? And it asks, what does that mean? I Am Sasha brings to the fore the issue of faith and belief in God. It addresses other issues like racism, inhumanity, human rights, resistance and defiance, loss and displacement. It highlights acts of cruelty and kindness, tolerance and acceptance, truth and deception. And it showcases examples of familial and romantic love, friendship and trust. Poignantly, the book illustrates the human spirit of hope juxtaposed with great fear. So, I Am Sasha offers a rich tapestry woven within the text, like a spider weaving its web. It begins in Fremantle, Australia, and is set against the backdrop of history that dates to pre-World War II Poland, covering the war, post-war, and concludes with arrival in Melbourne, Australia in 1950. We come full circle. Clues about the story appear in the prologue at the beginning of the book, with Sasha's journeying on a boat from Europe to Australia after the war. Sasha is telling the story, remembering the past and thinking of those war days in Poland when life was lived as an adolescent. I would like to read a brief excerpt now from the prologue. So this is Sasha speaking. I lie here and think of home, of Poland and my beautiful town of Lvov. There are times when I cannot tell if I'm dreaming or I'm awake. I remember so many things, but there's one day that haunts me still, whether I'm awake or asleep. It was a day when Mama and I were hiding in a barn. There were shots and terrible cries, and I was pleading with her. Mama, I don't want to die. Do something. I screamed as bombs exploded outside and many shots were fired. Cries followed, men, women and children, and then silence. I remember peering through the window and saw a German soldier slapping an old man. Another pointed a gun to a boy's head. Pull down your trousers, he shouted. The boy was circumcised, so the soldier pulled the trigger, and I saw blood splatter on the street. Dirty Jew, the soldier spat, and then the door barn burst open. So I lie here still on my bunk and think of this day so long ago now. How do you try and forget these things that change your life forever? Can you? I think of our old home in Poland. I see the details of our apartment in Lvov, The walnut timber bedheads, the plasterwork round the ceiling. I remember sobbing on my bed for ages one day, crying and yelling at Mama. I can't do it. You want too much, Mama. My heart thumps harder just thinking about it. I was 13 then, and so confused. And I got up and stood in front of the mirror in the door of my wardrobe. I just stand there and look at my dress, which I hate. It has stripes, and I hate stripes. And the hem is uneven, and I don't even have a proper waist like a girl should have. And the dress feels like it's choking me because the collar is one of those collars with a tie ribbon at the front and buttons that do up high to the neck. It's very uncomfortable. Mama just says I should stop complaining and think how lucky I am to have a dress like this at all. I start to stroke my hair flat on top of my head. I hate my hair too. I liked it better before I let it grow. Now it's just curly and it sticks out at the sides. And it's not even pretty like girls should have. I hate this so much. Everything, my shoes, my socks, even the way I stand. Upon first reading, it seems that Sasha is a typical adolescent, complaining about physical appearance and clothing, yet there's much more to it than that. While Sasha is reminiscing about these external factors in life in war-torn Poland, the text here foreshadows the unravelling of the tale. The dress has a far deeper meaning than a contentious item of clothing. Both the dress and circumcision are actually pivotal in the story, critical in the plot. These passages in the prologue are written with this intent, so when reading further on in the story, bear them in mind and ask yourself, what is their significance? I hope that those of you choosing to read I Am Sasha will gain something from it, whether it be a more informed understanding of World War II and the Holocaust, or some insight into the human character and human condition, or all of the above and maybe more. I would now like to thank my family and friends, and particularly my husband Danny, who encouraged me to continue when it didn't look like it was going to happen, and who've supported me through this very emotional journey of writing I Am Sasha, and to everyone who has made time today to be with me, to share this day and attend my launch. I am humbled and appreciative.
I Am Sasha is such a successful book because of the extensive historical research that Anita has done to ensure that we're getting a full story, not a partial story, not a distortion of the Holocaust, which is something that troubles me deeply with some of the fictionalised accounts that is published on our bookshelves. So Anita not only has the historical detail right, but she also has created characters one really cares about. And I know those of you who bought the book this afternoon and who start reading it tonight will have a very late night because you will not be able to put it down. I'm going to ask Anita to make her way downstairs because she's going to put herself into a position where she's going to be ready to sign all those books for all her beautiful friends and everyone else who's turned up this afternoon, particularly one of your great fans, one of the few 13-year-olds, I think probably the only 13-year-old in the audience who has come especially to meet you, was one of your first fangirls as an author. So Anita, if you'd like to make your way downstairs, and then I'd like to invite others, if they'd like to make their way downstairs, to purchase a copy of the book, if they'd like to, and also we have some light refreshments as well for you to partake in. So please, we'll let Anita go down first and get into position. Thank you very much.